Hello, and welcome to Work and Live Liberated. My guest today is Kathy Casey. She's a training consultant specializing in bringing the three principles to leaders and individuals and groups. So I know Kathy because I went to a conference, 2018, and I read some books by Sid Banks, and I met Kathy and she was speaking at the conference, and I was so connected to what she was saying. And I wanted some of that for myself, for my own personal empowerment. So Kathy, can you share briefly what the three principles are? But before you do, I want to just do a brief intro about this podcast. So people listen to this podcast who want more freedom, power, and liberation in their work life, and also in every area of life. So how does the three principles do that? How does the three principles give me or anyone freedom and power at work?
Well, this is interesting to define something that is actually the foundation of all human experience. So most of the time, people want to do better in their lives, be more successful, or they have issues and they're dealing with issues. And so I was trained as a traditional therapist, and people would come and I would work on those specific issues. What the principles are, they are what we would call the foundation or the blueprint for all human experience, so that instead of focusing on the issue, or we may start on the issue, I quickly want to back into what's behind not just the issue, but everything else. So as people get a sense of why certain things bother them, say somebody you're in a relationship, and there are days when they get on our very last nerve, like they just drive you. Even if I ask people just think about that person, they'll start to experience, oh yes, and the eyes start rolling. Okay, well, how does that experience occur? Like, how does that happen? The person's not even there, and you're now experiencing them. Well, that's what the principles do. They explain the phenomena of that. And not to say, oh, after that, you'll never be bothered by that person again. But you'll have a sense of, because there are days when they don't get on your very last nerve, and other days when they do. Now, what's the variable there? They're still the same. So what's creating not such a bad experience one day and like exasperation another? Well, it's where I am. It's where my state of mind is. And when people start to get hip to that, for some reason, and this is the intangible, we can't explain a piece, people start to be less bothered by things that they used to be bothered by. Or people who feel like they're not moving in their career, they're stuck. Well, if you start sitting with somebody who's really stuck and they're not getting anywhere, they have all this attachment and all this thinking about they need to get from point A to point B. Well, what they don't realize is that's what's getting in their way, is this tremendous amount of thought about moving forward. When they're no longer attached to that, and their minds just get free and clear, and they get a wider vantage point, then they see more possibility. Then they can tap into their creativity, which is always there, regardless of how much weight you have it or not. When people realize what's really there and what's getting in the way of it, then they start to understand, oh, I'm just innocently caught up in this thing right now. That's all it is. So it's an understanding of the blueprint. It's the foundation. And when you get that, and I have witnessed transformational change like you can't even imagine when people just get a tiny inkling of what we're talking about here. So it's not like a how-to, it's not like a technique, it's not like something you do, it's something you see and understand.
So can we do a little example?
Sure.
All right. So I'm going to try to do this. I have known for a long time that I need to take my business online. A long time. I mean, I'm 58 years old. I consult and coach. I can only physically touch so many people in a day, right? And some days my My limit is our other people are like, you're crazy. How do you coach 8 people in one day? So I've resisted the online network.
Yes. Yes.
And so I start Googling it. And then I have all these people because their cookies caught my cookies. And now they're all flooding me with emails. Take your business online, take your business online. And I get completely overwhelmed. And then I'll pick 3 that had, let's say, a message that I liked. And then I start getting the prices. And then I'm even more overwhelmed. And then I don't do anything. So now how do we take everything you just said and apply it to that? Why are you laughing? Does this sound familiar?
Yes, it's very familiar. It's very familiar. I mean, I could get that way just trying to pick a flight to fly somewhere, the different routes you can take and the different times. Oh yeah, I've been there where you just get so much information and you just reach a point where you can't, you're in overwhelm, and I'll just walk away from it. And so usually when people are having to make a decision and they do due diligence, so you did the right thing, you went out there and you checked in on what's out there, and then you get all this information. Well, this is what happens next. Then you walk away from it and you wait. And what you're waiting for is this other dimension within you to give you the answer of what you should do. But if you don't allow that, if you get back in there and re-examine it, no, literally you check the whole thing out, and then you step back and you go, okay, I don't know what to do right now. I just don't know. And see, here's the hard part, being okay with not knowing, but also being open. As soon as you're okay with not knowing, that opens you up to knowing. See, it's
so I'm hearing slowing down. And I think it was you who told me, take your hands off the stove, like stop engaging in this crazy making of having to figure it out or having to do this or having to do that. So yeah. And then, so I'm doing a book right now called The Presence Process. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's with this guy named Michael Brown. I highly recommend it, but it's not just meditating, but it's actually slowing down the breath so that we can hear the whispers or hear the infinite intelligence. And I've been getting one was stop, literally the word stop. Who said that? Who said that? And then today it was condition. And, I don't know, condition what? Condition my body, condition my mind, condition my hair, what? But it was condition. And so I am doing that. So it's good that I am practicing it. But tell me a little bit about that.
Could I say something a little bit further?
Yeah.
Now, what you're doing is brilliant. Absolutely. And he's pointing you in that direction. But see, I'm saying understand the nature of how we know what to do. That's to me.
Say that again.
Understanding the nature of what's behind knowing what to do. Where does that come from?
Yeah, that's what I want to know. What is that? What is that?
What is that? That is something that every human being is connected to. There are many different words to describe this. It's an intuitive knowing. It's limitless potential. It's energy. It's formless. It's universal. It's the life force. Like in biology, they call it the life force. In physics, they call it energy. In religion, they call it God. In psychology, they call it mind.
I call it the human spirit. Is that
whatever you want to, the human spirit, the soul, whatever you want. See, these are just words describing something intangible, invisible, and formless, but yet it's responsible for everything. So that's, I don't tell people what to do. I tell people what they're connected to. And knowing what we're connected to and knowing how we moment to moment create anything. See, we're creating, right now, we're creating this experience right now through this energy, through our thinking, through just what we see, feel, touch, and hear. We're creating that. I want people to know about that. And then they have their own insights about their lives, whether it's doing the business that you want to do, or they've been addicted to heroin for 20 years, and everything in between.
Wow. Wow.
So this is having a knowing and a set of eyes versus a doing.
So for somebody, so there's two kinds of people that watch this podcast. There's business leaders and managers who want to create a culture that is life-giving, that is inspiring. And then there's people who are saying, I'm not liberated at work. I want freedom in what I do for a living. So what would you recommend to a business leader that wants to shape a culture, create the kind of energy that gives life, that inspires, that everybody just slow down and just allow people to settle into their own innate intelligence, to their own wisdom? How would you suggest to do that? Because, Kathy, they all want quick fixes.
I know. Well, first of all, I've worked in the corporate world. I've worked Silicon Valley. People don't even remember when PCs were being built, and this is before .com. So it's a very high speed industry. It's insane. But actually, I was lucky to be a part of a team that brought what I just described into a defense company, huge defense company. And the top guy, he basically said, if you could tell me why super smart people, dedicated smart people, make stupid mistakes. Because the situation in this company was the cost of these mistakes was astronomical, and the burnout rate of the people, and they couldn't just hire people because of all the security clearances. So they were struggling. So they brought this, what I just described, in as a leadership program. So this is a true story. So my colleague, George Pransky, he worked with the top tier, 10 people, the top dogs, so to speak. And he presented this to them. And they looked at him like, yeah, whatever, offsite, beautiful. And they didn't get it. So he went home, and the guy who brought him in, George says, forget it. It's just not going to go. It's not going to work. And this guy in the company, the human no, we're going to try it again. So the next month, same 10 guys did it again. 2 guys kind of caught on. They were, oh, I see what you're pointing to. But, just 2. And George said, well, this is not, forget it. And this guy, he's amazing. His name's Dick. No, we're going to do this one more time. So he brought him out again and just talked about the nature of this in the context of a corporate world, being a manager, working with people who don't follow directions, working with complex problems, silo thinking, different departments, not community, all that stuff. The third round, it kicked in. 1 guy didn't get it. The 9 guys did. And they then took it to the next level, the next tier. There was such a change in that company. It's been documented. Everything changed. The lightness in management, it just showed up. And they became more efficient. They were able to solve complex problems. And they put out these fighter jets. They put out anti stuff to keep missiles from coming in. I mean, they were dealing with super, super complex stuff. They had physicists, engineers, and they got it. And it was so simple. So the thing is, so the point I'm making is, if a company or leader wants to support their team, if their team, first the leader and then the rest of them, they get a sense of what this is, it has a huge impact. Mayo Clinic has been impacted with this from the top on down.
So what I'm hearing in layman's terms, there is the mechanics of how human being works. And then there is slowing things down so that the adrenaline bias isn't pushing us into getting a lot of stuff done, which is how mistakes happen.
Right.
And then we're settling into who are we and what do we want to accomplish? And when we slow down, that becomes available to us. But it's not as simple as just going into meditation class.
No. See the word slow, people tend to have a lot of thinking about slow. In fact, when we first started presenting this, the guys are looking at us like, you could have done this in 2 hours. Like, they couldn't hang with us. So we had to stop and tell them the method to our madness, meaning we need you to disengage to hear something. I'm trying to bypass your head. They were super smart. I looked and I said, but I'm trying to bypass your head right now. And if your head is zooming as it usually does, then you're not going to hear me. So, but I'm cool with it. I'm just letting you know ahead of time, I'm trying to look at a different part of you. I'm connecting to a different part of you. And then they caught on. They started to get, well, we know what that is. When we get stuck, I'll walk around the campus and clear my mind to get a new solution. See, they knew already. It's just that we were describing something that they didn't really value or respect. You know what I mean?
And it wasn't part of the culture. This behavior this behavior is different than the go culture, work 80 hours a week, get shit done, and not necessarily thinking about how we can do things differently.
See, anybody can be in the zone and be very active, very engaging. Think of a basketball player. The great ones, they know how to play, of course, but when they go into the game, it's not them anymore. You know what I mean? They go into the zone. Yep. Well, see, we all have that. But when they're not in the game, a lot of them don't even, they forget that, and they have problems in their families, or they have issues with drugs or whatever. So they know it on the court, but they forget about it in their life. Well, this goes across, in fact, when we would do these trainings, they started asking us about parenting and relationships. Yes. And I'm like, I can't believe I'm talking about parenting to a group of engineers. But they said, well, if that's true here, well, what about over here? And I go, it's the same.
So let's break it down even more. Back when I met you, you and your colleagues were saying thought, mind, and consciousness. Are you still teaching it that way?
Oh, yeah.
Could you tell me what those?
Okay, so my thought, mind, and consciousness. So thought, we all know what thought is. We're thinking beings. We're all just thinking our way.
I think, therefore I am.
We're born into thought, and there's no escaping it. If you're no longer in thought, you are no longer alive. Okay, it's just that simple. Now, when I say we're thinking beings, people don't really appreciate what that truly means until I have people reflect on, like, think of something funny that happens. Like, people say, well, I drive to work every day the same way, and one day I miss the exit. All of a sudden I realized, I missed my exit. Well, guess what? Your mind was somewhere else, so you experienced that somewhere else. That's why you didn't see the exit. See, if it's not in your thinking, it doesn't exist. So I want people to really appreciate that thought is it. So anybody who's listening to this, think of a time when you walked into another room and you're like, now, why did I come in here? How many of us, we've had that experience? Or you're looking for your glasses everywhere. You can't find them, and you just give up. Well, you didn't have the thought that you had put them here. So we're thinking beings. And the more we appreciate just the fact of that, just we're in thought all the time. It's like the ocean is still out there putting waves up on the beach. Whether we see it or not, we know that's still going on. Well, it's the same with thought. We're constantly, flow of thoughts always coming in. Now, there are times when we know what we're thinking and we experience it. Like if I'm driving, I say, oh, look at that great red car. All of a sudden, I'm now having a red car experience because I have a thought. Well, how did that happen? Well, consciousness gives me the experience of my thinking. It gives me a physical. So I'm using my sight. I see a red car and I see red, and now I'm having a red car experience. Now, it's very simplistic, but we're doing this all the time. I torture people and I tell them, think of your most favorite food right now. What is your most favorite? Now, I used to teach inmates in jail, right? They're locked up. And I'd say, think of your most favorite. And they go, oh, my grandmother's enchiladas, or my aunt makes this great lasagna. And all of a sudden I said, now what's going on right now? Oh, I can taste it. I can smell it. I can see it. I said, now how can
my
that
stomach's
happen?
growling.
Exactly. And they're sitting in a cell, in a room in a prison, and they're experiencing their favorite food. Now, how did that happen? Consciousness makes your thinking. It gives you a physical sensory experience of your thinking. So even though the enchiladas are not there physically, I'm still almost tasting them. That's consciousness. Mind is just the power that allows us to do those two things. It's just we're connected to this source of energy, life, that allows us to be thinking beings and experience an enchilada in a jail cell without it being there. Mind, thought, conscious just gives us our moment to moment experience of whatever thinking we're having, and it gives us the special effects of the whole thing. We get to see, hear, smell everything around us.
So is mind the power source to it all?
Mind is the power source. You could call, again, we're talking to things that are intangible, that are formless, but yet they're all powers. You can't have one without the other.
Yeah.
And they're just words to represent something that's indescribable.
So here you are in a defense company, helping them reduce stress, make less mistakes, be happier.
Well, we're not going in there with that intent. That's the result of it. See,
yeah.
I want to make that clear.
What's the intent?
For them to know the blueprint of how their experience comes about. That's our only. Now we call it leadership. Okay, we put titles on things to make it relevant, but we're pointing them to the blueprint, and then as a result of that, then the mistakes go down, then the burnout goes down.
I would call that developing the leader within. That's in the keen alignment.
There's so many ways to describe this.
Yeah.
You can call it anything you want. But to me, the key thing is, though, for me, it's the blueprint. It doesn't matter what we call it. I want people to know that. What I just described, I want people to know that. When they know that, then anything's possible.
So you've also gone in and worked with inmates. How did you get into that? Why did you do it? And what was the outcome?
Okay. Well, it was by accident. I was actually in the jail system here locally in San Jose, California. I was in charge of a research project for the criminal justice system, federal justice system. They were doing surveys, data collection in all the cities throughout the country to find out what were the drug trends, what drugs are out on the street, so that they could better fund programs, et cetera. So my job was to interview inmates coming in to find out, well, what drugs were you using out there? And so I was conducting that for the National Institute of Justice. I was just doing that. Now, as I learned the principles, about 6 months into it, and this was putting me through grad school. I'm doing this job at night, I had a team of interviewers. And I'm sitting there while they're doing their data collection and doing the interviewing. And all of a sudden I'm listening to women on the phones freaking out about their kids or freaking because they're locked up. And all of a sudden it hit me, hey, maybe they would benefit from knowing this. So I call my dear friend, Linda Ramos. I call her up. I go, hey, we got to teach this to inmates. She goes, you're kidding me. I go, yeah, why not? So we wrote up a proposal. We got funded. And then we looked at each other, well, now what do we do? Because we made up this program. We literally made up a curriculum. We got funded. And next thing you know, we're in there teaching this to inmates. So, and over time, there was a point where I had like 100 guys in front of me learning this. And I could tell you stories, how this impacted. And violence went down, recidivism improved. But the bottom line is, it was amazing. And they would hear us at first, like the gang guys, tattooed up, like they're only sitting there just to look good to the judge. Okay, I got to take this stupid class. And at some point they're like, could you say that again? What is that? And they would see it. They would see it. I have this great little video where you can see them talking about this. It's awesome. And at one point we showed the videotape to the business guys at this defense company. George Prank says, no, we're going to show them the tape of the inmates. And I go, well, maybe not. He said, no, we're going to do this. And what was amazing? At one point, at the end of the video, the business guys, they loved it. So who's harder to teach this stuff to, us or them? And I go, well, what do you think? We're probably harder, aren't we? And then the inmates, they knew what I was doing in the corporate world. Kathy, who's harder to learn this, them or us? And I go, well, what do you think? Well, we're probably easy because we know we've screwed up. But it was so amazing because what we were teaching was universal, but in a different context, but it was universally the same for both.
So how has knowing the blueprint impacted your personal life?
Oh, night and day different. I was a very intense, the person you described, go, 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 work, 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 achieve, achieve, achieve. I had an edge. I'm the oldest of 10, so I probably learned that growing up.
Oldest of 10?
Oldest, yeah. Boston Irish Catholic, oldest of 10. And I could get the job done. People loved me. I got a reference from this woman I used to work for, and I used her as a reference, and they called her, and the guy looks at me, he says, you want to hear what she said about you? I said, well, I guess. Well, she said you can walk on water. You're hired. Well, I had that in me, but the thing is, I was so burnt out. I loved what I did, but it took a toll on me. And being a big people person, on the weekends, I didn't want to deal with anybody.
Mm.
Well, what I didn't realize was I was walking around in a ton of thought while I was doing what I was doing. And this is the problem. You have competent, brilliant people walking around in this. So it feels heavy, and it feels like we're always striving, and we're working against the tide, or whatever you want to call that. And when I started to learn this, it's like, oh, I don't need that, because the other part of me is really making me successful, not this extra, achieve, achieve, achieve. So my life changed. I went from feeling this intensity and urgency to taking things as they come, taking care of business. I did just as much, if not more, did a lot of traveling. I was traveling all over the world, but it didn't have that impact because I wasn't in all this intense thinking while I was doing what I was doing. So I became very successful. I still did all that I did, but it didn't take a toll on me physically. Yes,
It
but not
sounds
mentally.
like you were still successful, but you were now fulfilled, and you could enjoy your success because you were more present.
Yeah. And the presence, see, we don't talk about trying to be present. I want people to know what presence is. See, it's built into, it's in us all the time.
So what is it? What is it?
It's our minds being free and clear.
Mm.
And that means I'm either in me, how's Kathy doing? Kathy, or I'm out with you. And as soon as I'm with you and connecting to you, Kathy disappears. And
Okay, you got to say that again. That was really good.
It's when our minds are free and clear, out of the blue, we slip into it. See, it's there already. It's not like you get it and put it back in. No, our free and clear minds are there already. We slip into it. And then all of a sudden I come out of Kathy, me, Kathy, and I'm now just with you. See, when I'm with you, and I'm just with you right now, time disappears. Things are light, things are connected.
Yeah. In my book, in Ignite Culture, we talk about that as level 4 generative. It's like we're connecting. You taught me this, soul to soul, and we're truly like we're with each other. There isn't anything else there. And it's
See, you got hit though. See, you got hit. It's amazing because I know you're sponsoring this so that a lot of people can get certain things from this. So I get you're facilitating. But when I said what I said, you stopped and you got hit.
Yeah.
You got hit. That's what we're talking. That part in you recognizes. See, we recognize this. This is not new. We recognize we're in this already. We just forgot.
Well, we forget all the time, I think, because the way we've been enculturated in the world of work, at least the way I was, and by the way, every one of my clients, I mean, I'm 58. So for ever many years as I've been working, since I've been 18, you go to work and you are productive every second of the day. And productive means looking really busy, doing this and doing that.
Guess what?
Productive doesn't look like,
you know what?
Help me access the answer.
In this big company we were working in, when they saw what you just said, they said, but Kathy, if we don't look urgent and serious, they think we're, I go, okay, well, pretend. Just pretend. Just pretend. You see oh yeah, I'm working really hard. But you're going to get what you need to get done. But you're right. People are conditioned we have to look or be a certain way. So, because they said, well, I said, well, just pretend, to help them. But once they see that you're really productive and that you're doing a good job, after a while, they won't care what you look like.
Yeah.
They won't care. If you do a good job, that's all they care about. But the bottom line is we're innocently programmed that way. Yeah.
So let's say somebody wants to do this work with you directly. How do they find you?
Oh, email. That's the only way. I don't do Facebook. I don't have
So what's your email address?
The letters UARE100. Don't laugh at AOL.com.
So it's UARE
100 at AOL.com.
UARE100.
UARE100. There's a whole story with that, but that's how people find me.
Okay. So let's say somebody wants to do this work for themselves. They say,
Yes.
I loved that moment in time when Kathy and Magi connected, and I want that. And they get it and they work with you. And now they want to go tell their boss about this thing. And they think that the company should do some work on this 3 principles. How do they talk about it?
Okay. Well, now that's fine. I actually do a program. I've done a few programs where part 1 is seeing this for yourself. So really seeing the truth in this, and not me telling you, me having you look at your life to see how that really did happen. So
I did that program with you. You were up in my living room and we looked at the wall of thought, and it was a great 3 days.
Yeah. So you seeing it for yourself. So that's the first thing. Then part 2 is, okay, now that I see this for myself, how is this playing out with a client or an organization? Oh, what set of eyes do I want to have on that? And then at the end of that, then we talk about, well, how do I engage an individual or group to see the possibility of this? Like, how would I go about this? So that would be the final piece. But first, we call it grounding. I like to say, the more I just see this play out in me, Kathy, the deeper I see that for myself, then it's really easy to go, oh, that's what's going on.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the deal. Now, helping them see that, there's a way to go about that, but you don't want to go there until you really do this first part.
Yeah, you have. So that's the premise of my entire book. You have to take care of the leader within before you start pointing over there at everybody else.
So that's what I do with people. So I've done a couple of groups doing that. Also, I'm designing a program where I do more about having this curiosity with a leader. Well, what is their take on what's going on in the organization? And on the surface, they could say, well, it's that we don't have enough money. We don't, they see the problem here. But I want to get more curious. Well, what do you mean you don't have enough money? And you take it more vertically, get more curious to where what you start with, it's money when actually it's something else. Yep. So I do a program on how do we get with people from a vertical place to the point where you're really backing them into the blueprint is what you're doing.
Yeah.
For them to realize, oh, I see why I'm stuck. I think it's money when it's actually, so blah, blah, blah. Anyway.
Great.
But yeah, I'm designing a program right now because people are asking for that more than anything. Once they learn this for themselves, well, now how do I engage with others? And so,
and so that's for the company part. But I imagine if somebody really works with you like I did and starts to look at my own wall of thought and that, oh my gosh, everybody has separate realities and
all of it. Yes.
And I'm not in tune with their reality, that it just makes people better communicators, gives them more compassion, more empathy. So Kathy, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm going to put together a summit there's going to be one summit for igniting culture. It's really myself, and the book is promoting it, but I'm bringing together all of the teachers who have ever made a difference for me in my life. And we're going to host a 2-day summit where people come on and talk about their unique skill set of how they create transformation in self and organizations. Would you be my guest on that?
Sure.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. And then I'm going to do another summit for women called Ignite Your Power. And it's going to be all women for women. And would you want to be a guest on that if the
Sure,
timing works?
absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay,
And that's actually my biggest dream. I was working with a lot of men. And look out for what you ask for, because I said, I want to work with women now. Women, they've got a lot on their plate. They're out there being professionals. Blah, blah. So I thought, this is it for me. And so I ended up working with thousands of women, but not in Silicon Valley, not professional women. I ended up working with Orthodox Jewish women throughout the world. And I'm like, how did that happen? So look out for what you ask for, but I love teaching women. I'd sign up for anything helping women with this. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being my guest. I miss you.
Oh, I know. You look fabulous. You look younger.
Well, I feel younger.
It shows.
I went to Peru. I did 2 weeks in the jungle this year, which I have to do a podcast on to share about that.
No, it's that spirit within. You're so much lighter today than when I first met you.
I've been working hard, I would say.
Night and day different.
Really excavating. Is that the word? Excavating and alchemizing.
Yeah. Well, now you can just say slipping into it. See, all we need just slipping into it.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
You and I will be in touch.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.